Hello there, and welcome to Nowhere to Hide. I'm Brian Hyde. I think it's just human nature. I'm not trying to bag on anybody. Certainly, I'm guilty of this too. But if we are left to our own devices, all things being equal, we're going to take the path of least resistance on most things. But there are some priorities you just can't do that. Freedom being one of them. And in just a few moments, I'm going to share with you a few thoughts on why Idaho needs engaged citizens, meaning you and me. Details coming up.
All reporters are biased, the Idaho Press Club are biased, all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not how this works.
Once again, welcome to Nowhere to Hide. I'm Brian Hyde, and this is going to be kind of a down and dirty episode. Just a couple of thoughts on why it's so important that we remain engaged as citizens here in Idaho. Look, there's a lot we can take for granted, right? And we probably do. We take for granted, there's going to be beautiful scenery pretty much anywhere I go. Values are, for the most part, pretty conservative. This is still, it's a bastion of freedom in a world that is increasingly less free. And there have been some tragedies, neighboring states around us have seen some I think real tragedy with abandonment of conservative values. Having said that, we're all busy, right? Every one of us is probably stretched a little bit thin. I like to think, well, at least I'm using my time wisely. I'm trying to do some good in what I'm doing. But my point here is, if you are not engaged in what your government is doing, and by that I mean aware of it, not just advocating for, well, I want favors for me or for my group, but paying attention to what's being done with your tax dollars and with whatever authority is being asserted over you, you are missing something really important. And most of all, you're missing out on the opportunity to be the influence for good that you really could be and should be. All of us. Okay, so I'm not calling anybody out here by name. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm just trying to tell you we can't outsource it to politicians. Each of us, if we want to enjoy the sweetness of freedom, we have to be willing to bear some of the burden. And part of that burden is you have to keep your government accountable. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of this, and hopefully this will make sense to you. The Idaho Freedom Foundation, first of all, is reminding everyone that early voting is open. The Secretary of State posted this earlier in the week on X. It's open in many Idaho counties for the November 4th local election. And I don't know about you, maybe you feel like, but this is, last year was the big election. That was the main event. We don't need to worry so much about this. No, if you are an engaged citizen, you do need to worry about this. And here's why. This year alone, we at the Idaho Freedom Foundation have uncovered multiple instances of government corruption and total lack of accountability. From bonds and levies to your school board to your city council, these are local races that determine how your money is going to be spent, how your children are educated, how much freedom you keep. So you have a stake in this, but everybody, but there is not enough political signs to make it seem like it matters. It matters, but it only matters to the ones who are paying attention. So don't let the corrupt machine win another day. Get out and vote before or on election day and let your voice be heard. That is very sound advice. And notice the council here isn't telling you how to vote. It's just making sure you're not overlooking this chance to exercise your franchise. And we'll talk more about why that needs to happen. One of the things that's happening right now is the state of Idaho is finding itself in a budget crunch. In fact, before I go into this story, just to put this in perspective, we've had a lot of years of growth. The last half a decade or so really saw Idaho just explode in terms of people wanting to come here, wanting the better business environment, wanting to lower taxes, or the perception of there's more freedom to be found here. And I think largely they're right, but the state spent money and borrowed money and accepted money from the federal government to the point where its spending, its habits, its lifestyle, if you will, has become bloated. It's very, very large. I mean, 60% increase over 5 years, that is huge. So it makes sense that when the crisis has abated, for instance, it's not COVID pandemic season yet, but the government shouldn't be spending like that. And it shouldn't be expecting to spend like that. So it's spent itself into a problem where the next 2 fiscal years are going to be very critical. And it means the legislature is going to have some heavy lifting to do too, because they're responsible for, how that money is appropriated. The governor asks for it in his budget, but the legislature has to say, okay, this is how we're going to do it. There has to be that accountability. If you don't see that, or if you find that there's wasteful spending taking place, it needs to be rooted out and stopped, and it needs to happen sooner than later. So with that in mind, let's go back here to this headline. This is from idahonews.com. Idaho DOJ task force considers eliminating state positions and agencies. Now, I don't want to sound insensitive. I know that we all know people who work for the state or who work for various agencies and who might very well be affected by that efficiency or downsizing of government, particularly if there's redundancy or if it's just flat out wasteful. And so this is nothing personal, but it really comes down to what is government supposed to do. It's not a jobs program for people who, have the right connections. It's supposed to serve a very specific purpose. And even though it may be something that may be popular, sometimes it's not the right thing for government to be involved in. This is part of being an engaged citizen too, is you're not waiting for someone to tell you, well, if government has to draw the limit somewhere, I'm sure it'll tell us where that limit is. Oh, yes. It'll tell you, oh, it's just a little bit further than I need to go, right now. You have to know as a citizen, you are the ultimate place where government gets its authority. You need to be able to hold it accountable, make sure it's using it clearly. Now, look, when it comes to eliminating state positions and agencies, I don't know why that is cause for hand-wringing, but for some people, it's, like, oh, this is terrible. But here's what Idaho News reported. They said the Idaho Capital Sun reported that DOJ's task force is set to recommend potential eliminations of state employee positions in the repeal or merger of agencies, boards, and commissions. It's a hard truth. I mean, it's not like, gee, could they spin that softer? No, this is what may be required. But would you rather not, take care of this now than come down the road and find out we can't afford this and, the state's appetite for my taxes still continues to grow? It's time to make some serious adjustments. Anyway, the task force named after Federal Department of Government Efficiency voted in Boise to allow co-chairs to present information on long-term vacancies to state budget writers at their November interim budget meeting. Now, it's not a guaranteed slam dunk, but they're looking to cut some things. And look, you got to see some of the different departments that are being considered for either consolidation or elimination. Again, I mean, nothing personal. If you know someone who works in one of these, they're probably great people. But how many of us are going to be personally affected by the one plan executive group being eliminated? It's a conservation planner, but does it really affect us? No. How about the junior college district, dormitory housing commission? Could that not be folded into something else? You see what I'm saying here? It's not a matter of, how can we throw as many people to the wolves as possible just before Christmas and Thanksgiving? For crying out loud, the honey commission. Why do we have it? There comes a time where we have to tighten our belts, right? Where the economy may not be so great. Well, there's times where government does too. I'm looking at this list and I'm thinking, unless you have some very specialized business, chances are good you're probably not affected by this terribly. Anyway, another place, education. This is one of the places where it's so far it's sacrosanct. Well, now we can make cuts, but not in education. Well, guess what? The next couple of years, it's very likely education is going to be up on the chopping block. I'm not saying that that's going to be a happy time for some, but it's going to be interesting. And one more thing to think about, this is a final thought here on education. I want you to check out this report, which you can find at idahofreedom.org, the American School Counselors Association in Idaho Schools. This is a report conducted and authored by the Center for American Education. That is Samuel Lair. Sam's work is impeccable. This guy is very bright and connects the dots very well, but you need to hear the warning that he is sounding here. This isn't to scare you. This is just to make you aware of, here's what's going on. Is a radical agenda quietly taking over Idaho schools? Well, this new report shows you how ASCA's national model is spreading throughout the state, promoting radical progressive priorities like diversity, equity, and inclusion, and LGBT ideology, and transforming school counselors into progressive activists. The model also grants counselors power to make decisions for students without parental consent, a tactic which has led to controversies like schools secretly allowing children to transition. Look, it's happened in other states. It very well could happen here. Would you not want to know about it? Okay, I would encourage you to check it out for yourself. idahofreedom.org. I think you'll find this very worth your time, and I'm sure we will be revisiting this in the not so distant future. In the meantime, becoming an engaged citizen. This is not just a one and done kind of thing. Well, I took the quiz once, checked all the boxes. Yeah, I'm good. It's the kind of thing that you have to do as long as you're drawing breath, as long as you have an influence to wield within your community or your household or your neighborhood, whatever it may be. you need to make sure you're wielding it wisely. That's the essence of leadership. Being an engaged citizen means you know what is going on, and you know where your compass is pointed to. You're not waiting for someone to tell you. Although sometimes it's kind of a compliment. If somebody seeks you out and says, hey, I could use your advice on this. Anyway, I'm Brian Hyde. This is Nowhere to Hide.
All reporters are biased. The Idaho Press Club are biased. All media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
Indoctrination.
That's right.
Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.